Hey, hi Gaby. How's it going?
How are you doing?
I'm not so bad. It's a nice sunny Friday, so I'm doing pretty good.
Great. Okay, so it's the first time we are talking. It's a bit nerve-wracking when it's the first time that you are talking with someone and it's in an interview for a podcast, isn't it?
Yes, it's a little strange, but it's
It's
the times
stressful.
we live in. Not so bad, not so bad.
No, not so bad. Anyway, you seem like when I was reading your history, you are like a very, very interesting person.
Oh wow, that's very nice of you to say.
Really, because when I was planning this podcast, you know that this podcast is like divided by subjects. You have a wide range of subjects that you can work on. Listening to another interview that you had in another podcast.
Okay, which one was it? Do you remember?
It was one about, it was, I think the name was Things We Talk About, or...
Okay. Yes, that one. Yeah, okay, I remember that one. I've done a few this year, so it's always hard to keep track.
Yeah, I was like listening to it, and I was listening to your story about your ex-girlfriend. It was a story about your ex-girlfriend from Greece.
Yes,
Yeah.
that story.
And I was listening to it, and I couldn't finish the story, and I was very into it. But I would love to, like now that I'm talking to you, I would like to know the story. So if you can tell me again that story from the beginning. So because probably you are a bit tired as well of talking about probably, you know, during your interviews people ask you always the same questions about history, apartheid.
No, it's so there to be told.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you have to say it again, it's also fine. But I should. It's both a performance piece that is based on a real story. So do you want the performance piece, or do you want the more just the actual story?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's always you can always differentiate. You know, I try to write both what I would read and also how I would perform it. And it's also, it does change accordingly. But I think perhaps maybe this podcast would be best if I just told you the story.
Okay. Yeah. I think it. Yeah.
At the time, it was 2008, and I was living in London. And I have a few different passports, which allows me to be quite flexible in my travels. So in the sense that I don't really have to apply for visas often. I'm very fortunate in that respect. So once you get some freedoms to travel, you kind of forget about those certain barriers. I think it was one weekend I decided to go to Greece to actually visit my girlfriend at the time. I remember, strolling through the airport without care in the world. I would think I was traveling on my British passport at the time. I was stopped by the immigration officer. He started asking me a few questions, which was fine. I was very relaxed. And then he asked me, he started scrutinizing my passport a bit too much and just checking size as if though it wasn't an authentic or real passport.
Yeah.
So it was kind of suggesting there was a forgery of some sort.
Yeah, that's always a very awful situation.
And I think it's always, that particular context is always nerve-wracking. Even if it's, if you haven't done anything wrong, it's a very nerve-wracking situation where your entire identity is being scrutinized.
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult to stay calm, even though you didn't do anything. Yeah.
But I still felt very confident. I didn't realize anything was really wrong. But then he beckoned me to, he asked me to go to another room. So I left the line and he escorted me to another room. Inside that room, there was a door to another room. And he led me into the smaller room. And there was a chair, a table, and that was it. As he escorted me there, he asked me to have a seat. And I just sat down, and then he closed the door and left. And just as he left, another man came in, much more official-looking man, much more intimidating-looking man. Yeah. And he just stood there. He didn't say a word. And I sat there waiting. I wasn't sure exactly what the problem was. Yeah. I couldn't see any problem. I thought maybe they were going to check me for drugs or something like that, which was really fine with me. I didn't have anything on me or anything. So I still felt rather confident in my situation. Time passed. I can't say exactly how long, but it's probably 5 to 10 minutes. And after a while, I stood up and asked the officer. He was uniformed, by the way.
What was going on?
I asked, just generally what seems to be the problem. And he responded quite firmly and brutally. He said, "Sit, no talking." And he had a very heavy Greek accent.
Oh my God.
And I remember at the time thinking, no, I don't want to sit down. That was my little protest. I just stood there and said no. We kind of got into a situation where he was asking me to do something and I was refusing. And then I think I was provoking him by standing up, which even though there were like at least 2 or 3 meters between us, and he took a step forward and he said, "Sit." I said no, and he said, "Sit." And I said no, and he kept taking a step forward. And then it's a strangeness, because in my life I think I've been in obviously physical alterations, but it's always strange when you get hit when you're not expecting it. Yeah. And so he slapped me around the face with an open hand.
Oh no!
And I remember being, to be honest, it didn't hurt. I was just surprised.
Yeah, but it's a horrible situation, even though. Yeah.
I kind of just took a step back, and then he kind of took a step forward again. And I took a step forward as well, as if I was going to, I thought this was actually going to be a fight. And then he hit me again. And I was, for some reason, I can't understand, I was surprised again. And I should have been.
It's a shock.
And I remember sitting down. And then as soon as I sat down, his face changed to almost a victorious smile. And he kind of had won this kind of victory. And just with that, he exited the room. And as soon as he exited the room, the other man who had been checking my papers came in, and I kind of sheepishly asked, why that man, I was still holding my chi, why that man hit me. And the second man who had come in, he said simply, "Man." And I just remember thinking, wow, that was unbelievable. That was amazing. It was how they synchronized it, and I had no recourse, I had no power, I had no way to actually understand or to fight back in any way.
Yeah.
And he gave me my passport back, and he just escorted me out. And then all of a sudden I was in the arrival lounge, and that was it. And that was the end of the story.
But then, did you see your ex-girlfriend after it?
Yeah, she picked me up, and but I didn't mention anything about the story to her.
That's not very
I think it was out of shame mostly that I didn't mention at the time. I mentioned it after some time, a couple of days.
Yeah, but the shame is on them.
Yeah, yes, I guess the shame is on them, but in that moment you feel shame yourself that you were allowed to be vulnerable, that your sense of the world was so easily destroyed in that moment. I think that's what the enduring violence of it wasn't what he did in the moment, is what he left me with.
Actually, talking about shame is so complicated because it's such a complex theme. I think it's very strong to listen to these stories on first person, because you were born during the apartheid, and then you came to Europe. I know that you are based in Berlin, but I don't know how you ended up there. Did you go straight there, or did you go to other places? I know you studied in London.
I've been fortunate enough throughout my life, especially in my childhood, to have lived in a lot of different countries. And I think it's been an invaluable lesson, the experiences of every country. It was definitely not a straight path arriving to Berlin. I never thought I'd be living in Berlin, but I came here for a 2-week holiday, and now it's been 4 years, and I've really enjoyed my time here.
I love Berlin. I think it's a fantastic place. Have you lived in London, for instance?
Yes, I lived for about 7 to 8 years in London. Mostly in southeast London, so around Lewisham, New Cross area. Actually, I went to university in London. I did my degree in sociology at Greenwich University, and then I did my master's at Goldsmiths University.
That's great. You're a well-known poet, but you are also a sociologist. Do you work on that as well, or?
At the moment, no, I'm not teaching. I'm not in academia at the moment. I'm thinking about going back, but at the moment I've just taken a couple of years to do other things, to explore other avenues, and I've just really enjoyed that. It's allowed me to cultivate new connections, create communities, and I think, you know, that's what I really like about Berlin, is the ability of the facility, the ease by which you can create new communities. And so I really enjoyed that. And maybe when I'm ready, or when the time comes, I'll try and go back to academia. But at the moment, I'm just enjoying not only my own writing, but, as say, building artistic communities around Berlin.
And you created the Spoken Word of Berlin.
Yes, so that was a couple of years ago with my friend Mary. She and I both started Berlin Spoken Word. That's also allowed us to launch a lot of other projects. So, for example, Wicked projects, and we've had other certain initiatives like Sharing Words That Matter. We have a magazine that we run, and we also do outdoor events, and we also teach in schools. So we try to bring spoken word into schools.
Yeah, from different countries listen to this podcast. So how can people find you if they are interested in your work and your life and your work?
Well, you know, Facebook, unfortunately, is probably the best way. I post most of the stuff that I do on Facebook. So if they want to contact me, or some of the projects that I run or get involved somehow, it's through Facebook, either through me directly, my personal account, or on the Berlin Spoken Word account, or on the Wicked Projects account. But yeah, that will kind of give you a glimpse of what we're all about and what I'm about. And yeah, that's the best way, really.
And do you have any poem about life in Europe, or life in, like, about your countries? Do you have any poem about that?
I wrote a piece a couple of years ago about cities, and the actual project was what if a city was a person? What would their name be? What would they be like? So I wrote about every city that I've ever been to. I tried to anyway, and it's personification of cities, and so yeah, I do so much write about.
Do you usually write about social themes, or do you write more about other topics?
I think that my writing is always around politics, somehow, politics of identity, or other various types of politics. But I think that would be the theme that runs through all my writings.
And would you like to read something, if you have something short that you can share?
I don't have anything on cities at the moment. I don't think on this laptop.
No, but any other, like a poem that you like and you would like to share?
A poem that I like. Ooh, it's like you're asking me to choose between my children. But yeah, I think I could probably find something. It's let me think. Let me try and think. Which one of my children am I going to choose?
That's a horrible metaphor.
Okay, I do have this one poem. It's about love, actually. I was doing a project recently. The theme was love. Okay. And it's about so I can read it. It's pretty short. It's about 2 minutes long.
Okay, I will add some music then after this.
Sure. So should I start now?
Yeah.
The graveyard of my soul is littered by countless zombie corpses of loves lost. These lonely herds of bodies and vague memories stumble about the fields of my heart, abandoned by time, but nurtured and perverted by cocaine neglect. The oldest of them, a 6th grade teenage kiss without tongue, we both stole in Playground's corner. Her name was Amandine, and damn, she was something to be seen. Time flies as I reminisce with a tearful eye for all those loves gone awry. Murdered by impatience, our youthful heart's vocation mourns the loss of lust and innocent elation. This one time I sought to bury once and for all of those mummified memories of flirtations, but I accidentally ended up burying myself. A self that, despite my most earnest efforts, I've never been able to find again. You see, when you bury yourself, You should never expect to assume that same heart. Death is death, and that boy who loved Amandine, well, he is gone.